Hi, I'm Sonia, and welcome to my channel, Sonia and Life Over 60. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about sunscreen. And I want to tell you a little bit later on in the video what my favorite sunscreen is. But before we get into all of that, why is it that we need sunscreen? We need sunscreen to prevent the sun's ultraviolet rays from penetrating into our skin. There are three types of ultraviolet rays. You have what's called UVC, UVB, and UVA. Now the UVC rays we don't need to worry about because those rays do not get absorbed through the Earth's atmosphere. The UVB rays, they do penetrate our skin, just to the surface of our skin. And the UVB rays are, you can think of them as the burning rays because these are the rays that cause our skin to burn. And they also can cause some skin damage as well as skin cancer. Then we have the UVA rays. Now these are longer rays and they penetrate deeper into our skin. And these are the rays that we can think of them as ultraviolet aging rays because these are the ones that, well, they do cause our skin to tan, but they do cause our skin to age. They can cause considerable skin damage as well as cause cancer. I've always been of the view or the opinion that on a cloudy day, like today, it's a very cloudy, overcast day, that you don't need sunscreen if it's an overcast day because the sun's rays aren't penetrating through the clouds. Well, I'm wrong on that. UVB rays, they're not going to penetrate as much through the cloud cover. However, the UVA rays do penetrate through the clouds. Plus, UVA rays can also penetrate through glass, like the glass in your, windows. I happen to sit in front of a window when I'm in my office, when I'm taping here, and in the morning I get full sun. I should need to be wearing my sunscreen every time I'm in the office and working here. Also, too, the UVA rays can penetrate through, like your car windows. So it's important to always be wearing your sunscreen with that UVA protection because it's going to not letting up. It's always there. It's always there, ready to penetrate through our skin. As well, the UVA rays don't care if it's summer or winter. They're strong throughout the year. Yet another reason to be getting some of that good old UVA protection on our skin at all times. So how do we protect our skin from UVB, UVA rays? Well, it's the sunscreen. But what is it in the sunscreen that does that? Well, it's the filters. And there are two types of filters. One is called a chemical filter and one is called a physical filter. Essentially though, all filters have chemical substances in them. And the one that you're going to be wanting to use is going to be the one that's best for your skin. The physical filters like the zinc dioxide or the titanium dioxide, they are less irritating to the skin. So if you do have sensitive skin, you may want to be looking at more of a, the physical / mineral type of sunscreen. There is a difference though between the chemical sunscreen filter and the physical sunscreen filter in terms of how they react on our skin or what they do. For example, with the chemical sunscreen filter, it's going to absorb the UV radiation from the sun's rays, whereas the physical or the mineral filter is going to be sitting on top of our skin and it's going to be reflecting and blocking the UV radiation from the sun's rays. And as I mentioned, it really comes down to personal choice in terms of which type of sunscreen filter you're going to want to be using. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of those filters a little bit later on in the video. We can probably all pretty much agree that sunscreen is important in terms of being able to block those UVB, UVA rays. There might be some controversy out there, people thinking you don't need sunscreen at all. I'm of the view that we do, and I want to be protecting my skin from the aging effects that it can cause, or from skin cancer, or from burning even. But how much sunscreen should we actually be using? Here's a little video where I'm demonstrating the amount of sunscreen that we should use. When we're applying our sunscreen, it's recommended that we use 1/4 teaspoon to 1/3 teaspoon. It doesn't sound like a lot of sunscreen, but I want to demonstrate what that actually looks like. So I have 1/3 teaspoon measuring, and I'm just going to put my sunscreen in here. So, you know, got 1/3, and I'll just take that out, put that on, kind of dot that on my face here. Like, that's a lot of sunscreen. Now I think I would go with, on a normal day, 1/4 teaspoon. 1/3 I think is good. You know, like wearing a lower top here, I get all my neck covered. I can get my hands. Now, it looks kind of white right now on my face, but this actually is a fairly fast absorbing sunscreen, and it just does really absorb into my skin. And this particular one is a 50 SPF, and it's a Korean brand, so it's got that rating of PA++++, which means it's going to have really good UVA coverage as well. As you saw, 1/3 teaspoon, that's a lot of product. I had no idea. I always thought, you know, just putting some on, kind of like what I do with my moisturizers, and I thought that was adequate. Clearly it's not. We've probably all seen foundations with SPF. We've seen like moisturizing SPFs. We've seen primers. The primer, I have a primer right here, the e.l.f. Sun Touchable primer. It's got a 30 SPF in it. I would never use this as my primary sunscreen. I can't imagine putting 1/4 teaspoon of primer on my skin. So for me, it's important that I put my sunscreen on, and like a product like this primer is actually really, really good. I would just use it as a regular primer, and bonus, I'm getting a little bit more protection of sunscreen, I guess. Now, before I get into what sunscreen I think is best, let's talk a bit about the UVB protection and the UVA protection. And how do I know if I'm getting enough protection from either UVB rays or the UVA rays? The way that the UVB is measured is through what is called the sun protection factor, or the SPF. And the SPF essentially tells you how long you can stay in the sun before burning. So for example, if it takes 10 minutes for your skin to burn and you have an SPF of 30, that means theoretically you could stay for 300 minutes in the sun. Now everybody burns at different rates, so it's all going to depend on how long it takes you to burn in terms of the protection that you're getting from your sunscreen. But it needs to be noted that sunscreen does need to be reapplied every couple of hours, because the effects do diminish over time. So staying 300 minutes without thinking you're going to burn may or may not be the case. When it comes to UVA protection, now this is something altogether a bit different. And there is no international standard in terms of how UVA protection is rated. In the US, you will know that your sunscreen has both UVB and UVA protection if it says broad spectrum on the label. And in order to be able to say broad spectrum, it has to have a critical wavelength greater than 370 nanometers, and it has to have an SPF 15% or higher. In the UK, they use a star rating, which tells you how much protection the sunscreen offers in the UVA spectrum in relation to UVB rays. The more stars, the higher the level of UVA protection. In Europe, the UVA protection products are labeled with a UVA with the circle around it. And in order to be able to use this symbol, then the UVA protection has to have a critical wavelength of 370 nanometers, and the ratio of the UVA protection factor to SPF has to be 1/3 or higher. So this means that a product with an SPF of 50 would provide UVA protection at almost 94%. In Korea, they use the PA+ system. The PA stands for the protection grade of UVA, which measures how long it takes your skin to burn. The higher, how long to take your skin to turn brown. The higher the pluses, the higher the UVA protection. For example, a P+++ rating would block almost 94% of the UVA rays. Now, there are calculations that are done to determine the level of UVA protection. They're all a little bit different. I'm not sure how you know what the protection of UVA is in the US, but I've linked some documents below that go on to explain how this is all done, because it is different for all of these different countries. I read a study by, it's called the EWG, it's the Environmental Working Group, and I've put a link to this study below. And it was done in 2020, where they tested 51 sunscreen products. And they found that only 35% of these sunscreen products, and these were American sunscreen products, met the European standard, although 94 of them would pass the US standard. So this is showing me that clearly the European standard is higher than the American standard is. It's also interesting to note that there have been no new sunscreen filters approved by the FDA since 1999. And that's because, like in the US, the sunscreens are regulated like drugs. So in order for a new filter to be approved, it's got to go through rigorous testing and research and studies. And it seems that, I don't know, must be too onerous because nothing's been approved since 1999, which is quite a long time ago. Countries like Korea, Europe, Australia, they treat sunscreen products like cosmetics. And as a result, the testing, while still rigorous and, still has to meet certain standards, things can get approved much, much more quickly. So as a result, these countries have introduced new and more effective UVA filters over the years. Some of the names of them are Tinosorb, Uvanol, and these filters tend to be more photostable. They tend to protect more against the UVA rays, and they provide longer lasting protection. Also too, in some of like the Korean sunscreens, for example, not only is it a sunscreen, they've added things like niacinamide, green tea, Centella asiatica, hyaluronic acid, all great skincare ingredients. And they also tend to make their sunscreens like lighter, they absorb better. And having these new filters, I think you're getting a higher level of UVA protection from them. So, what sunscreen do I recommend? To be honest, I recommend the sunscreen that you are actually going to wear. The one that doesn't cause you skin irritations or cause you to break out, that feels comfortable on your skin. And, there's a plethora of sunscreens out there in the world. And really, the most important thing is to get one that you're going to wear, because in my opinion, it's very, very important to be wearing sunscreen and to be wearing it every single day. Now, for me personally, what my preference actually are the Korean, European sunscreens. I love, I have a number of them. I have, I showed like in the picture, I have like La Roche-Posay. Neta has approved this one, and it has a new filter called Memorex. So you can get this. It's La Roche-Posay, that's a French company, part of the L'Oreal brand. Then too, I have a couple from, the Korean. I have this one, Fruitia. It's a 50, it's a PA++++. And then I have this one from, I think it's Madagascar Centella. And this one is a physical sunscreen. It has the zinc and the titanium dioxide in it. And again, it's a PA++++. So I know I'm getting a pretty high level of UVA protection. And I'm getting a high level of SPF protection as well. Now, when it comes to cost, well, I looked at a number of, the Korean brand. I looked at the La Roche-Posay, and they're all very similar in cost when you start to look at the cost per ounce. Like I think the Frutia is about $6 per ounce. This might be about $7. This promo is about $6. I looked at Umbrel, which is, you know, an American company, and I think that one is around $6 or $7 per ounce. So a lot of the sunscreens seem to be in the same kind of price range. Now, I get my Korean brands, I go through a company called Stylovana, and I will link I'll give you the link below. This is a great company. You get such amazing Korean products from that company. And okay, I'm not paid to say this at all. I buy my own products, but I've ordered quite a number of things through Stylovana, and shipping is fast. The products are what they say they are. The price is right. Great company. But you know what? Just because those sunscreens work for me doesn't mean they'll work for you. It's like a diet. There is no one diet that works for everyone, because every body is different, such as everybody's skin is different. And it's really important that you find the one that works best for you, because in so doing, then you're going to be more prone to wear your sunscreen every single day. I hope you have found this video informative and maybe learned a little bit more about UVB, UVA rays, and the different products and the different filters that are now available out there. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video.